Welcome in, everybody. No exciting intro this week. An absolutely somber week for the pod as the Niners lost their third straight heading into the bye. But obviously the main story here, the Vikings have to say goodbye to our podcast namesake, Kirk Cousins, who tore his Achilles yesterday in the Vikings 24-10 win against the Packers. We're going to start there off the top. I know we got to get into the Niners loss. You were at the game yesterday, Joey, but biggest story by far. Jimmy has left. He's on the 49 or on the Raiders now, and now the other half of our podcast namesake, Kirk Cousins, may have taken his last snap in a Viking uniform after that devastating injury yesterday. Nothing worse than this as a fan, seeing your quarterback go down for the season.
I think the main takeaway is we might have to rename this pod. It might be, I don't know. Nothing feels great, and we don't like that. So
no. Yeah, Jaron Hall and Brock Purdy not exactly moving the needle.
We can name it "What the fuck happened to Brocktober?"
Yeah, what happened to BCB? Because he's looking very average these last few games.
To get to your Vikings, it sucks. It sucks. Like quarterback losing, losing their season or their season being over injury, is just like you said. I mean, your team won the game. And it's just like, nope. Like
I forgot that we even won. It's like 14-point win on the road at the Packers, our biggest rival, and like I forgot the result of the game.
It shows you how much like the quarterback even matters because Kirk is really good, but he is really good. I'm gonna leave it at that because I can say he's top 10. I think he's top 10. Like some people between 10 and 15.
This year he's
people
top
argue like
7,
people argue like no one's watching him like they watch Mahomes or some of these other guys, but like he's pretty damn good. But still, it's like he's out and it's like shit. Like totally takes the wind out of this. He was playing
the
Vikings
absolute
didn't turn the ball over
best
so much
football of his career.
In the first few games, if Vikings didn't turn the ball over so much the first few games, he's got a pretty good case for the MVP.
Yeah, with Jefferson out and him playing, I think the last 3 games, which didn't feature Jefferson, were 3 of the best games of his career. He's been lights out. He was amazing against the Niners. He was basically perfect yesterday until the injury. On third down, I think in the last 2 games, he was like 77% or something on third down converting. The best he had looked in a Viking uniform, probably the best he had looked in his NFL career this year. He had 16 touchdowns, or actually ended up with 18 touchdowns, over 100 passer rating. Like this was his year. The Netflix thing, everybody started liking him as a person after that. It was like all building towards, hey, we came back from our bad start. We're 4-4. We're in a bad NFC. Oh my gosh, we're going to make the playoffs and we're going to win this thing with Kirk. And then, man, devastating. But as sports fans have to do, we have to compartmentalize. We have to say, hey, we love Kirk. We really appreciate what he brought to this team, but we got to look forward. And I guess I could rattle off all the names of the guys that have been brought up in the past 24 hours, and it is a laundry list of options there.
Trey Lance?
That was the first one. I got a text from my uncle. He was like, Trey Lance is available. I don't think that one's coming to fruition, but all sorts of names for trades in terms of like minor guys. We had Brissett, Keenum, we had Colt McCoy, Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, options being bandied about. It looks like as of right now, and this is Monday night, 8:30 Pacific time, we are thinking probably just going to ride it out with Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins. Mullins has been in this system for a while. Clearly everything's fine.
Nick Mullins.
Mullins is coming back next week off IR, supposedly. So, there are worse options. Jaron Hall is a worse option than Nick Mullins, but he's the only healthy QB on the roster right now. They obviously have to add somebody just so that they have, a third QB in the room. Sean Mannion's on the practice squad, but he is awful. He started 2 games for the Vikings over the last 5 years, and it's just not the guy. I guess looking around the options, obviously I would love Tom Brady. That's not going to happen. That would be my number 1 pick. It'd be everyone's number 1 pick. It's not going to happen. Of the guys that have been mentioned, I don't think Matt Ryan is coming out of retirement. I think he likes his job with CBS. I don't think Nick Foles is coming out of retirement. My only option that I've seen that I think could move the needle even a little bit is Carson Wentz, and even that is just locker room cancer, like waiting to happen. So tough situation. As an impartial observer, Joey, is there any direction you would go if you were the Vikings GM, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah? Because, I mean, you don't want to give up assets this year. You're not going to win the Super Bowl. Very unlikely you're going to win a playoff game. So you don't want to give up draft compensation for a guy. So where would you go if you were in charge?
I mean, yeah, none of those. I mean, I would. Carson Wentz honestly was the first guy that I thought of. I don't know that Atlanta would move him, but you could take a look at Taylor Heineke, but he might be their starter right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't mind Heineke. Heineke actually began his career with the Vikings and was a freaking preseason superstar back-to-back years. I think this was 2016, 2017. I was like, man, that guy really tries hard. And, I mean, lo and behold, he started a playoff game. The
better options that I think you didn't mention, mostly because I don't think there's any chance the teams would give them up. Not because they're not starters, but, like, I don't think the Niners are giving up Sam Darnold with, Purdy's concussion, and Purdy's, like, just right now just – well, we'll get into that. But the other one, I thought Cooper Rush.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, he was okay for Dallas. I think they won mostly because of good defense. Wants
Trey. Yeah, I mean, it's something.
Yeah.
You want to? I mean, you could take a run at like maybe like one of the young. I mean, Jarrett Stidham, but Denver paid him a lot of money to be a backup.
The one that's been talked about is Tannehill, and I just don't see it. I mean, they said, he'll probably be healthy by next week, so they could trade for him at the deadline, even though he's coming off an ankle injury. But I mean,
you're looking more like a Drew Lock too.
Yeah.
Like take a flyer.
The sad thing is like basically every name that is thrown out is someone that makes you go, ugh. And it's like the only ones that, are realistic because,
Andy Dalton?
Vikings Twitter. That's what I was going to say is Andy Dalton. Actually, I would not mind that at all. Here's what Vikings Twitter is saying. Realistic Twitter, realistic sports media, Adam Schefter, these guys are like, okay, possibilities. Tannehill, pretty unlikely. Dalton, maybe. Jacoby Brissett, maybe. Colt McCoy, likely, because he is, out of a job right now and knows O'Connell's system. He worked with him for 3 years. I'm like, okay. Vikings Twitter is like, Andrew Luck. I'm like, hello?
Did you? Yeah. Andrew
not going to happen. Tom Brady, not going to happen.
Andrew Luck's ESPN article says he hates football. So
let's get a guy who doesn't want to play. Like, okay. So, yeah, tough situation. I mean, we're 4-4. If you look at the NFC.
I actually think Jacoby Brissett is not an option because I think he might get dealt to like – I think he's going to have a pretty high market. And I don't think it's a market Minnesota wants to pay with draft picks. The Jets should definitely
take a look at him. Absolutely. As we get towards the deadline, I was like, I mean, the Jets have to get somebody and the Vikings have to get somebody. I don't think they're going to break the bank, especially given their salary cap situations. But Brissett will be moved, you would think, because Sam Howell is Washington's guy.
If you really, again, I don't even think the Niners would give this guy up. But I believe Brandon Allen has spent some time with like that system. Yeah. It's Zach Taylor's system in Cincinnati. But the Niners kept him again. I mean, I think they wanted to get rid of Trey Lance way before they actually did. But part of that was Brandon Allen being the third guy. And on the Niners team, that role in the depth chart plays sometime in the season.
Yeah. I don't think either of the Niners backups are on the radar, and for good reason. I mean, they may need them at some point later in the year. So, yeah, not a lot of good options as of right now. I would say the most likely option is staying pat. I think the second most likely option is a Colt McCoy type, someone who's been in the system and is a veteran. We just got to hope either Jaron Hall is really good, Nick Mullins can do something with this offense when Jefferson comes back, as Jefferson is due to come back the week after next. We will see. I really hope they make a splash move. I guess
if I was the GM, I would do something.
I mean, we're 4-4 and the NFC is bad, bad.
Like I said, I'm gonna give like myself a little credit because we were like, okay, what should we do? I was like, absolutely under no circumstance do you tank. And like, look what this got you. 4-4, like you have to reward the team. I mean, they need a positive, and I think if you say, hey, if we'll get somebody in here, like we're not just gonna say Jaron Hall, like, sink or swim. Like,
Yeah.
like trade a fifth or sixth or something for like a Colt McCoy and Andy Dalton, just some guy who like simply, I mean, worst case scenario, I mean, instead of 7 in a Gatorade bottle for Brian Hoyer or something, like get somebody in there.
Yeah, the message has to be sent to the team. Hey, you guys have battled back from a nightmare start.
I don't think
to
it's
get to
see, now
500.
that I think about it, I don't think it's a guy like Carson Wentz. I mean, removing even just like the locker room stuff. Like I don't think taking a guy who's unemployed does as much of a jolt as like some guy who, we did have to like give up something because some other team wanted him. Like just signing Carson Wentz or any one of the Matt Ryan, any one of those guys, like no, like get somebody who's been on a team, like the brain is still wired in meeting rooms, from being, on a roster. I think that could give them, because I mean, the division might be out of reach, probably. I mean, because Detroit's now 6-2. I mean, there's only 2 games, but their schedule and
but looking at the NFC,
it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been if Kirk didn't get hurt.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was playing so well, and our upcoming schedule is so easy that, like, hey, we really could have been there. And looking around the NFC, there's got to be 7 teams, and I think there's only 6 good teams in the NFC, maybe 5. So, whoever comes out of the NFC South, plus the Niners and Seahawks, the Cowboys and Eagles, and then the Lions, and then someone else has to make it. It's not going to be Washington.
I'm just looking at it right now. I'm like, holy crap. Like, not that I really ever thought like the Niners, like, damn, we're going to have to fight to make the playoffs. I mean,
you're not.
But like,
Rams.
I don't like, dude.
Washington.
I don't know. Like, I think we'll figure it out. But like, I mean, we got a bye, but then we got Jacksonville. I mean, Tampa's not great, but decent defense. And after that, we get the trifecta with Seattle, Philly, Seattle.
Yeah, things are getting interesting. We'll talk about the replacement options for Kirk Cousins here again in a little bit, but let's head over to the Niners. Just before we close that out, my order of quarterbacks that I want that are realistic, let's go with Dalton, Tannehill, Wentz in that order, and we'll see where that goes. Would love Teddy, but there's no way Detroit's giving him up. All right, here we go.
The final thing on that, the guy that did pop into my head that I don't know if Detroit would give him up or if he's healthy would be Hendon Hooker.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no way. They're not going to try to help a division. I mean, they did with Hawkinson last year, but their season was over at that point. They thought they were like 1-7 or whatever. Let's head over to the Niners. Man, 5-0, flying high. After that Cowboy game, you're like, man, this team might go 15-2 and just cakewalk to the Super Bowl. It has not gone that way. You were at the game on Sunday, your first game in person this season. You got to see your boy Joey B in action, but man, you come out of that game frustrated as hell with that Niner defense, I'd imagine.
Yeah, where do I start? Boy, hitting the skids is an understatement. But yeah, it starts and ends with their defense. I think there's an outside chance Steve Wilkes gets fired with this bye week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I saw Richard Sherman's podcast today, and he was giving it to Steve Wilkes. Like, he was talking schemes way more than I can talk it, obviously. And he had been on this team with these schemes with Saleh and D'Amico. I don't know if he was on the team when D'Amico was the coordinator, but D'Amico was at least the linebacker coach. And just the way he's talking about it is just kind of what I texted you. Is like they look and sound like a pitcher who knows he's tipping pitches,
mm-hmm.
and it looks like it. Like every time we are aggressive, here comes a perfectly timed screen pass by like I said, Kevin O'Connell, by Zach Taylor, by Stefanski 3 weeks ago. It was like, okay, perfect screen pass. Oh, they're rushing 6 or 7 this time. Here comes like a perfectly timed wide receiver screen or like just quick game. The Niners actually got to Burrow yesterday twice. Eric Armstead, got to him. I'm so sick of PFF numbers. PFF tells me
mm-hmm.
that I see that Nick Bosa leads the league in pressures. I'm like, well, he's got like 1 sack while being blocked. So, like, I don't know what to take with those numbers. I expect way more out of our passers, especially against these average to below average offensive lines. And then on top of that, because they're getting the ball out, so our coverage is awful. Like, I know Jamar Chase is an elite receiver, but some of these, like, he's wide open. He's wide open everywhere, all over the field.
And not just Chase. I mean, that guy Irwin was wide open a lot. Obviously, Higgins is good, but Boyd was open a ton. Is there second, third, fourth options in the offense that were just running wide open?
Like the Bengals, when humming, like, are obviously super talented on offense, but yeah, I mean, even Joe Mixon, he was back home. Probably had a ton of family friends watching the game or at the game. And there was a play, he took a run and he just trucked Dre Greenlaw, who never gets hit. Like, Dre Greenlaw was take your head off, get a 15-yard penalty while doing it. Like, he's like one of the biggest just tone setters on this team, full of tone setters. Well, should be on defense. And he took one up the middle and just put his shoulder into his chest and then kind of like pointed at him, did a little like, who's your daddy? Yeah, the Niners, like, beyond just X's and O's, have just been shoved around, especially the last 2 weeks, which never happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's like the one thing. Like, we might struggle to score some points offensively, especially when it was Jimmy, but it's like we were always like the baddest dudes on the block. And last 2 games, nope. Like, and I think it's rattled them. Like, I think also, like, they're on top of just getting out schemed, especially on defense, by these opposing either head coaches or offensive coordinators. Like, it's just, I think them getting pushed around is a hurt to their ego, when that is kind of what you hang your hat. Like, if the Chiefs gets pushed around, I don't think it hurts them as much, because, like, well, we have better play. Like, we have best player in the league. You know, like the Eagles, I don't think ever get pushed around that offensive line or defensive line. But if someone physical, like, I mean, they have good players. But the Niners, like, especially with, I mean, arguably their 2 biggest tone setters on the roster, Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel out, like, them getting pushed around, like,
they're
it's a shock to the system.
0-2 this year when those two missed the game, and I think that's the story.
Somebody said this. They're now. Well, I don't think the Bengals did it, but they're 0-2 when the other team comes out with a boombox. Like, and everyone laughs at it, but I'm like, it's not the actual boombox, but it's like Cleveland. The Cleveland's like, they had that pregame kerfuffle, but like other teams are like, okay, like, we're gonna like kind of punch the bully back, and like the Niners is the bully, like okay, whoa, like, we have no problem bullying like Dallas. Like, the Niners think Dallas is a bunch of just pretenders over there.
Right.
Like, but Cleveland's defense and even their offense, and along with Minnesota, like, just, and then yesterday Cincinnati. I mean, they're getting pushed around, which I just don't, on paper, should never happen.
Yeah, it hasn't happened since the 2020 season.
I don't like, really. How does their defensive line get shoved around? Their front 7. I mean, like, that's not physically possible with how talented they are.
Bosa, like, Hargrave,
all of them, and
Greenlaw,
all of them high motors.
Yeah.
Fred, all these guys, smart, high motor, like, they're not people who take plays off. They are getting pushed around. I think partly because they're a half second or full second, just like, oh shit, like, they don't know what's coming. Like, they're losing games like in the middle of the week. That's what I feel like.
I mean, we're starting to see maybe why Steve Wilkes was a one-and-done head coach. This defense is really underperforming.
And I might have been wrong, because I thought he was a great hire. I thought he did a pretty good job in Carolina last year after they fired Matt Rule. He was on my short list, along with I think they tried to get Vic Fangio, but I think Miami just offered him a bunch of money. But yeah, I think the other thing too, again, the Niners are they've been so, like, again, lack of a better word, they've been bullies, and they've been like being, I don't know, like, intimidating is very much a part of, like, the win games, because they have to be, like,
right.
Like, their offense usually with Jimmy couldn't, put, and I think a huge thing, like, Steve Wilkes is just such a different personality than like Saleh and D'Amico. Like, those guys were jacked up on the field, on the sidelines, like, hitting everyone in helmet, punching their pads.
Yeah.
Like Steve Wilkes is very like calm and like he also
He's
sits
up
in the
in the
press
booth.
box.
Yeah.
And I think, like, honestly, I would not be shocked if the players like go to the bench and are just like, because I think you only talk to me on that phone.
Yeah.
Right. You should go to the bench and like, do you think they're just like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Like they
I mean,
can't
they've
just
had
like, what are they doing?
7 seasons of like a rah defensive coordinator pumping them up on the sideline when they make a play, and now their leader is up in the
bad,
booth.
like either like one of the defensive captains, Fred or Armstead, or even like Bosa, or they got I mean, they've got guys who know what they're doing on defense.
Mhm.
Could go up to one of those guys, Saleh or Tanico, or conversely, like Saleh can get in like Fred's face and be like, dude, you missed this. Is like, does that happen? Like, hold each other accountable type thing. And like, I don't know what Steve looks. You don't see him. He's up.
Right.
And also the other guys, big, like D'Amico was an NFL linebacker. Robert Saleh, linebacker coach. Like, they're just like more, I don't know, like in your face personalities. And Steve Wilkes is like, he was a defensive back coach.
Right.
Like, just completely different. I don't know. I encourage you or whoever the heck is listening to this, if you really want to know, listen to Richard Sherman's podcast as he talks about the X's and O's way. But and it's just like, yeah, they're playing way different. They play that wide 9 defense, and Nick Bosa looks like he's in another zip code.
Yeah,
like
he
looks like he's covering the slot.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was watching the you can do this feature on YouTube TV where you watch all the key plays in the game, so I could kind of catch up. And I was like, man, they have like Bosa and Randy Gregory just like literally like 15, 20 feet away from the center.
Like for even from my seat, I'm just like no wonder they run the ball. There's like
massive gaps. They're asking Hargrave and Armstead to do much.
But like I said last week, the Niners, their run defense starts and ends with those 2 stud linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
And just right now I'm noticing, like, again, you saw it against the Vikings. I mean, they were running guys, and Fred, like, I think he's the best middle linebacker in football, but like he's just a step late on run plays, on pass plays. Like, his numbers are still great, but just from the first 5 games, I don't know. Maybe they got these teams have tape on the Niners defense with Steve Wilkes this year, and and again too, the Stefanski, Kevin O'Connell, and Zach Taylor all run the same like kind of scheme, so we'll see. But I mean, the next game is against Doug Peterson, like a good offensive coach, like with good quarterback.
Yeah,
like,
so
Jaguars are good, really good.
The last 3 games, if Moody makes the kick, that's 6-0. If the Vikings don't play essentially a perfect game, the Niners probably pull that one out. If Purdy doesn't throw that pick at the end, who knows? Maybe they go down and win that game dramatically. This one was different. This game was more of a beatdown.
It was different, but I mean, you could even argue, like you said, with the Vikings. Like, I mean, I think we stopped you guys like twice on first like goal to go.
Yeah.
Like maybe with, I don't want to say like with Jefferson, because you could then say like with the 9, like Trent, or like, I don't like doing that, but like if we don't hold you to field goals, or even I don't know if we got a turnover. It might have just been field goals. Like those are touchdowns. Like the game is not that close.
Yeah.
But this one, yeah, like start to finish. And then, I mean, the Brock Purdy thing is so frustrating because the last 2 games, I think he's played as like better than he's ever played. Like against the Vikings, the first 3 quarters before, which actually sounds like, when did he get a concussion?
Right.
And then I saw the replay of the sneak where I think one of the linebackers like just, I was like, oh, yeah, he got clocked right in the head. And then after that hit, he was like 2 of 6 with 2 of the worst picks you'll ever see. And like, which again, like, I thought he played the first 3 quarters against the Vikings so well. And I thought yesterday he was really good. Made some athletic plays, scrambling out of the pocket. But then the red zone pick, which was at the end of like our end, both picks were at our end where we were sitting. Like, we're in the corner of one of the end zones, and you're just like, what the hell is that? And like the first one, I heard that it was supposed to be a run play, like somebody screwed up and like it turned into like this scramble bullshit.
Yeah.
And like him and Elijah Mitchell like looked like they were standing right next to each other, and he tried to throw it just throw it out of bounds. Or like, But the second one was like, I saw it like one more angle, he dropped it, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, he's gonna do it. Like he's gonna throw it, right? And I'm like, up. And I'm like, I was like, that was Jimmy. Like that was Jimmy. Like I would love to just ask him, like, honestly, Brock, like no judgment here. Like this won't affect your performance review, in this one-on-one meeting, Brock. But did you see that guy? Like legitimately, like did you see him?
Yeah, he did not.
Because if you didn't, that's a great decision. He's wide open, but he was there. Like so. Like, did Kyle tell you?
I saw
because that pick was the very next throw from the pick.
Right. I saw Kurt Warner on Twitter today basically saying, hey, anybody who's criticizing Purdy for these last two games needs to watch the tape. It's basically perfect for 80, 85% of it.
Good.
Yeah. But
and then
obviously,
it's four of just the what the hell.
Yeah.
Like that's my biggest thing is like compared to like how he was previously playing when he was going like undefeated. I think his play overall, his better plays are even better. Like I think he is better, but his worst plays, way worse.
Right.
Like,
and it's because the defense isn't putting him in advantageous positions. He's having to come back and try to win games from behind, which he hasn't had to do yet in his NFL career. And I mean, I saw this stat. Under Shanahan, the Niners are 0-34 when trailing by 8 or more points in the fourth quarter. I mean, it's like they do not play from behind.
I don't even understand how that's possible.
It's because they're always ahead, especially.
I know, but even then, if they're always ahead, that's still like what 30-something opportunities to come back and like.
And they haven't done it once. It's pretty crazy.
I think I read something there like 1 and something when trailing by 3.
Yeah,
it's like 0 and a bunch when it's like 8. But if
a lot of those are
even if it's only 3, it's
a lot of those are the
0
and 10 start when pre-Jimmy and the year where Jimmy was out for the year. I get it, but man, perfectly timed bye for the Niners. Them being on a 3-game losing streak, they need to get right. Both the Vikings and Niners probably got to make some kind of a move over the next couple weeks to try to remain competitive after crazy situations heading into Week 9. Let's look ahead at Week 9. Let's start with Thursday Night Football. Tennessee at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's favored by 3. Will Levis, man. I mean, I don't know if you caught his highlights. Did not see that coming.
I caught his ex-girlfriend all over the internet.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those TikToks where it's like he dumped his ex-girlfriend, all of a sudden has 4 touchdowns in his first career game. They just show him being like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, oh my God, it's hilarious. But I mean, I did not see that coming from him. He's a guy who
they showed at the game for some reason. They chose that one to do like their highlight game. Like it's basically a sponsored like ad for Red Zone, and they show like that game and like his touchdown. Like oh my God, like a bombs away.
Yeah,
to like impressive. I mean, I didn't.
He had 3 touchdowns that he threw to DeAndre Hopkins, which 2 of them were Hopkins making great plays. One of them was a clear pass interference on Hopkins that they didn't call. That 4th touchdown to Westbrook-Ikhine, that is like, oh my God, that is an NFL superstar throw. He's rolling to his right, throws back to the left, like
it just makes you think like, what was he doing in practice to like not get this opportunity earlier over Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill?
Because he was lights out.
Neither of those guys have that in the bag. Like even if there's no defense, even if it was just 7-on-7 or something, could either one of those guys toss those balls?
And he has that gigantic tattoo on his bicep.
Dude, every time he throws, I think of that dude in 22 Jump Street. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do know who you're talking about.
Like every time I see it with the tattoo, I'm like, that's the dude from 22 Jump Street.
And he's just flexing after every touchdown. Yeah. I'm like, hey, maybe the Titans got something here. But they are 3-point underdogs at Pittsburgh, who Pittsburgh cannot move the ball. That's going to be an odd game because I think the storyline is going to be, the coronation of Levis as the Tennessee franchise quarterback. He's a beast. Let's see what he can do. But then Tomlin is probably going to have other ideas. That's why Pittsburgh is favored. Pretty decent game on Thursday night. But the main matchup, let's call this the game of the week. Miami against Kansas City in Frankfurt, Germany. Kansas City favored by 2.5. What a matchup for those German people. I mean, why are we sending our best game overseas?
I was just saying, this is criminal that this game is in Germany.
Exactly. This needs to be in America. Like, this is American football. What are we doing? Send them Jacksonville against somebody.
I get it. Like, okay, well, let's market the NFL. Because, like, I mean, if the NFL really did go global, like, it's over for the other sports. Like, it's just over. Like, it's now Earth sport. If if the NFL goes like to Europe and like I mean, really, they're taking on football, like L football in Europe, and they're like, no, we're bringing the NFL, and we're gonna, I get it, but like, what's the end goal? Like, just kind of like side, like, are they really thinking about having a London?
Oh, I think
Germany
that's
division?
the long-term goal. I don't know if
Like,
that'll happen.
how honestly freaking logistically is that possible?
I think it's only possible if you add several teams. So like if you have like, I don't know, maybe you expand the league to 36 teams and you have 4 out there in Europe or something.
Yeah, but
like,
how would you do the conferences?
I don't know, maybe move, 2 from the AFC to the NFC or something. I don't know.
Anyways, my point is, like, fine. I don't want to say Jaguars because they're like good, but yeah, I mean, why? Like, this game is going to impact the AFC picture big time.
Send them Carolina versus
Germany.
Tennessee.
Yeah, it's in Germany.
This should be an Arrowhead. This is
like I'm not here to like pump up the Chiefs' tires here, but like they've earned this game in Kansas City. Like, make Miami beat the Chiefs in
by far the biggest international game ever.
Not even close.
6-2 versus 6-2. The winner moves to the number 1 spot in the AFC. One note that I had here that I wanted to pass along to you. Mahomes has 15 touchdowns and 8 picks. Russell Wilson has 16 touchdowns and 4 picks. What the hell's going on with Kansas City? That game was nuts on Sunday. They said Mahomes was sick. I get it. It was cold. But, I mean, man, Kansas City looked awful in that game. You can call it a one-game blip, but that was pretty wild.
My whole thing, like, people just in general, people just want to see the stats the way they want to see them. I think Mahomes could go like a 30 for 30 Jameis Winston season, and like people would think, oh, that's the best player in the league, and it's like, is he? Like, just threw 30 picks. Like, I mean, obviously that's never going to happen, but yeah, I mean, it's just how quickly narrative just like Kirk, he's just been crushed his entire career. I'm like, he's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Like you have to look real hard to find someone better that someone's willing to get rid of.
Yeah.
Or like you have to suck real hard to get somebody in the draft. But yeah, like Russell Wilson is playing a lot better than he was last year, and Mahomes and the Chiefs offense, might have some issues. But yeah,
all that being said, this is a really good game. Kansas City favored by 2.5. Miami struggles against the good teams, beats the living crap out of the bad teams. This is a huge
advantage for them.
Miami.
But it's not in Kansas City.
Yes, and from what I've heard, McDaniel is having the Dolphins leave like right now on Monday to spend a whole week there.
The Jaguars played Buffalo and beat Buffalo.
Yeah,
and that was a huge advantage to Jaguars. That not only did that was their second London game.
Yeah,
so they didn't even have the time thing, but the fact that game was not in Buffalo,
huge advantage, and they had all that rest advantage. I believe Buffalo came in on a Thursday or a Friday. So
I think they came on Friday.
Yeah. So, Miami looks to be a team that the public is going to bet this week. I look towards Kansas City just because of the pedigree. I feel like they'll get it right. But we'll have to see on that one. I mean, that's definitely the game of the week. Another candidate for game of the week, Baltimore hosting Seattle. Seattle now first place in the NFC West. Baltimore first place in the AFC North. Baltimore favored by 5.5. It's the game of the morning for sure. I thought Seattle was super lucky to get away with a win in their game against Cleveland. It really took a boneheaded play call by Stefanski when it was 3rd and 3. They just need to run it twice and get 3 yards to win the game. They decided to do a play action pass. It got picked. The Seahawks go right down the field to win the game. I thought they were very lucky to win that one. And then Baltimore, I mean, they basically put together a C-plus effort because that's all they needed against Arizona. Wanted to get out there without any injuries. I think Baltimore probably should roll in this one unless Seattle finds something on offense. It's just kind of been a little bit clunky with Geno. I've been texting Evan a lot about the Seahawks, and he's like, everything is there. It's just Geno is not playing well. So I lean Baltimore here in this one.
Yeah, go Baltimore. Put up 50. No, the Ravens are actually, I mean, I was kind of a Raven hater a little bit before the season just because, number one, I need to see it with Lamar, mostly to stay healthy for 16, 17 games. And he is. And he's putting up an MVP season. I mean, there's nothing. The Ravens are really good.
Yeah, and I think they should control the ball in this one. I kind of like Baltimore there. Probably not going to make it into my best 5 picks of the week, but I lean Baltimore there. Arizona at Cleveland. Cleveland has to have this one. They're favored by 7, just to keep up with Baltimore and the resurgent Bengals. Probably won't talk
What a
about that game
division.
much.
I just think about what a division, the AFC North.
Oh, yeah. All teams have winning records, and Cincinnati is on the come up. Baltimore looks Super Bowl contender status. I mean, tough division there. We got to talk about Rams at Packers. Packers are favored by 3 because the feeling is that Matthew Stafford will miss this game with a UCL injury in his thumb. Man.
That sounds like a precursor to Tommy John.
Yeah, I was like, UCL in the elbow? They're like, no, UCL in the thumb. I'm like, oh, okay, that's not too bad. But man, these were the 2 worst teams on, at least in terms of performance last weekend. The Rams were, I believe, down 33-3 at one point against Dallas. And then the Packers against the Vikings. They did not get a first down until like 3 minutes left in the second quarter against the Vikings defense, which isn't exactly a world beater. Jordan Love is awful. That was the first time I've watched, every single snap of the game with a rooting interest. I was like, okay, let's see what Jordan Love really is. He is atrocious. Like, I watched that game and was like, this is a guy who never gets the ball out of his hands in time. Like, by the time he's ready to throw, he's either been sacked or the receivers have given up on their route and it's a scramble drill and he tries to make something happen. Like, this is a guy who has no grasp of the offense and no feel for the game. Green Bay was so bad last week, and yet they're favored by 3 because the Rams appear to be falling apart. So, wild game there. Joey, let's talk about this Washington and New England game. 2 teams going nowhere fast. Can you believe the Pats are favored by 3 in this? Like that, I thought that was a really weird line.
What a shit game. Yeah, because I think
Washington's been competitive with Philly. I mean, obviously, I think they stink, but
that's the thing. They've been competitive
with
Philly and then can't beat the Giants.
That's true.
Like, I mean,
you look at the rosters, though. I mean, Washington's got dudes.
They're way more talented than what their play and record is, which is why, I saw on Countdown Sunday before I left, or maybe I saw it later on YouTube or something, but Rex Ryan kind of said, you guys won't say it because you guys aren't coaches, but I'll say it. He basically Ron Rivera sucks ass. It's basically what he said. And I'm like, I mean, that's pretty harsh, but can't disagree.
You've been saying that for weeks.
I have. What do they do? He's a culture guy, and they might have the worst culture in the league. Their
maybe
defense
that's
isn't
why.
Good. Everyone who's worth anything on that team seems like they're on the trade block. Next,
everyone but McLaurin's going to get traded.
I mean, they drafted. I mean, Chase Young. Wow, has his career fallen off a cliff? They're awful.
They need a full reset. Absolutely.
The Patriots are awful, but
they've been playing a little bit better recently.
They have. They've had moments. I mean, beat Buffalo. That's a big win.
Chicago at New Orleans. New Orleans -7. The Saints have reemerged as a South favorite, in my opinion. I think Atlanta stinks. I think Tampa Bay stinks. I think Carolina stinks. New Orleans was just hucking the ball against Indianapolis. Derek Carr throwing deep bombs to Rashid Shaheed over and over. I think it was like a Randy Moss stat line, 3 catches for 160 and 2 touchdowns. They were bombing it. I think New Orleans has kind of gotten over that early season issue that they had with protecting Carr, and Carr just kind of throwing the ball too quickly. They had that game where they threw it to Kamara 13 times for 33 yards, where it was just check down after check down. I think New Orleans has got it right. I think they roll against Chicago here. I want to talk about Tampa Bay at Houston. Houston favored by 2.5. Really leaning towards picking Houston in this spot. This is a must-win for D'Amico, and I think this is a Tampa Bay team that's on the slide.
Yeah, I did not think they were going to lose to Carolina. That was a tough loss for one of our faves on the pod. But yeah, that's. I think they beat Tampa Bay. I think like you say here, it's a must win for both. I like Houston, especially at home. I think they get back on track.
We move into the late window on Sunday. This is the game of the late window for sure. Dallas at Philly. Philly only favored by 2.5. I don't think that this is the game of the week. I think it's obviously Miami, Kansas City, maybe even Seattle, Baltimore. I think Philly's going to roll here. I think they have had Dallas's number for a while now. I mean, probably since like the 2017 season, they've basically owned this rivalry. Really like Philly in this spot. You've played against Dallas this year, and you kind of saw what they're all about. They seem to be beating up on the bad teams and losing to the good teams. Do you like Philly here as well?
Yeah, I think Philly. I mean, I really thought my Niners were the best team in the NFC, maybe the NFL, but Philly's clearly, I think, the best team in the NFC right now. Although I think Detroit's close. Philly, their offensive line and like AJ Brown. I mean, throw his hat in that ring for best receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, he's got to be second behind Hill right now, huh?
I mean, you could make an argument he's number one. I mean, you really could.
First player I think ever with
I
just
think. I mean, it's so because you always lean the bigger guy.
Right.
Even you don't really care how fast Tyreek is, like, especially just in these violent sports, like. AJ Brown looks like he was built like Hercules, and I mean he's catching the moon balls, he's catching the digs over the middle. I mean he can do anything and everything. And then, I mean looking at the matchup, I mean Dallas with no digs hurts. Philly's offensive line is. I mean I would argue they're the best unit in the entire league. Like. And of any skill group, any position, like they're better than the, whatever group of receivers you want to name or like.
Well, I think the other unit that a lot of people would say is comparable is the Dallas defensive line. So that's going to be a hell of a match.
Well, I would have said the Niners defensive line, but that's not possible.
Yeah, so that's the game of the late window. I mean, that's a really good one. I'm going to definitely take Philly in my picks later. And then we got two absolute duds after that. We got the Giants at the Raiders -3. I don't really care about that one. That's probably the worst game of the day. And then Indy -2.5 at Carolina. One point I wanted to make here for listeners who've been betting on the NFL like us. Indy is the over team this year. Like every game they play, their defense is just sneaky awful. Every game they play ends up being a 50, 60 point game. The line on this one's still like 42.5, 43. Take the over in those games. Like Indy cannot play defense. So that's one to look at there. Let's talk about Sunday Night Football. The Bengals are officially back. Watch out. They're -2 against Buffalo on Sunday night, and I think they roll in this one too. I mean, they look like they are fully back. Burrow is fully healthy. The defense looked good for the second straight week. I mean, watch out for Cincinnati, huh?
That was one thing I noticed it being at the game yesterday, which the NFL is just it's such a big, obviously, Captain Obvious here, but like you go to any NFL game, like there's always like quite a bit of opposing fans there just because there's fans of every team like everywhere. You wouldn't think it, but like even if you went to like a Niners like Panthers game, like there's quite a bit of Panther fans. So you're like, where the hell are you from? Like maybe not like as much as obviously like a Green Bay or like Dallas or Pittsburgh come to town, but like I mean, so there were some Bengal fans there, and I walking out of the stadium, I heard these guys talking, and they're like, they really thought the 1 seed wasn't out of the question. Like the Bengals, like in the AFC,
they're 1.5 back of the 1 seed,
and it's like, why not? Yeah, and you look at this matchup, how banged up Buffalo is on defense, and with the Bengals offense. The thing that I noticed too, like I just post game from yesterday, is like the Bengals defense is actually like sneaky, really good.
Yeah,
like their front. DJ Reader in the interior had a huge game. Jake Brendel gave up the most pressures he's given up, I think, in his tenure as a Niner. He blew up a couple running plays. Obviously, their linebackers had a couple picks, and then no one was, getting super open down. I know Ayuk had a 100-yard game, but I mean, they let what's his name, Jesse Bates go in free agency, and they've been fine back there. But yeah, I mean their D coordinator Lou Anarumo, I can't pronounce it.
Yeah, Lou Anarumo. He's I mean, he'll be a head coaching candidate here at some point. That's
I
now
mean,
3 straight years they've been really good on D.
Yeah, so well-oiled machine. And Buffalo, again, they're one of those teams, especially if they don't knock you out in the first like quarter and a half, they get tight and they don't function as well. They're a team that like they win a lot of games 42-14.
And they lose a lot of games.
And they lose a lot of games. Well, they lose a lot of games that are like 24-21, like, oh wow. Couple turnovers from Josh.
Yeah.
And like, it just gets tight. But yeah, the Bengals, obviously, I would assume Burrow's calf is perfectly fine. It's in Cincinnati. I think they roll.
Yeah, I was surprised that was only 2. I thought it'd be 3 or 3.5. So definitely be taking that one. And then Monday Night Football, the Chargers coming off that huge win against the Bears on Sunday Night Football. Why do we keep getting the Chargers in prime time there on Monday night, favored by 3 at the Jets?
Well, I can answer that. You get the fan, the Buffalo Wild Wings fan girl who the hat.
Oh my God! Yeah, of course.
Perfectly timed fan. With the ad, when they get all these primetime games, they get the Chiefs game, Chargers Chiefs with CBS, Tony Romo, and then you get Sunday night. Now you get Monday night. Perfectly way to set up a fan with an ad. So
yeah, I mean, Herbert's been good. I don't know. He was really good against bad teams. Yeah, I mean. They're favored by 3 here. Obviously, the Jets played like absolute shit in that battle against the Giants. The game had 24 punts and 23 points. Probably the worst game of the NFL season, but they do emerge victorious. They are 4-3 through 7 games, which is insane to say with Rodgers having not played in any of them.
Is Rodgers playing next week? He looks pretty good.
He's moving around pretty good, but it is going to be Zach Wilson here. I kind of lean the Jets. Saleh has something brewing there. The positivity around that team. They were down 10-7 with 24 seconds left and no timeouts, and had the ball at like the 20 and easily got down the field in 2 plays, kicked a field goal, went in overtime and won it. I mean, the vibes are high right now for the Jets, so I lean there in that one. So that's your Week 9 preview. We'll give you 5 picks here shortly on the ones we like best. Joey, it's time for your Jack and the Bum of the Week. A ton of candidates this week. I cannot believe how bad the Giants were yesterday. They threw for -1 yards. Tommy DeVito came in for the injured Tyrod Taylor. He went 2 of 7 for -1 yards. I mean, just an absolute disaster there. And then at the end of the game, basically all you have to do is keep the Jets like inbounds on 2 straight plays and you win the game. They couldn't even do that. They couldn't move the ball in overtime at all. I believe they had like -10 yards in overtime. I mean, one of the worst offensive performances we've seen in the NFL in a long time. Kevin Stefanski, for his decision to not run the ball twice on 3rd and 3 to ice the game, decided to try a risky pass, got deflected off Jamal Adams' helmet, and the Seahawks ended up winning the game. Bonehead decision by Stefanski there. Chiefs offense, 9 points at Denver. Probably the worst Mahomes has looked in his entire career in any game. So they had to be on there. And then your beloved 49er defense giving up 31 to the Bengals. Those are my candidates for Jack and the Bum of the Week. But you're going with someone who is the Jack and the Bum of an entire city right now.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, a lot of good candidates. But this week, we're giving it to Pittsburgh's favorite son, Matt Canada. Just Jack and the Bum of the Week. Their offense is terrible. I know Trubisky came in once Pickett got hurt, didn't get any better. But you know what? Retroactive bum, maybe, because I just still can't get over that play where Pickett changed the play and got a touchdown, and he was like upset, like in the booth.
His team beat the Ravens, and he's like, "Dang it!"
Like red flag, like all of them, like put in like your phone chat, like you text somebody, like just put like 10 red flags. That's just weird. They cannot move the ball. They don't do anything well. I think they have better players than what their numbers are showing.
Absolutely.
Like they have an elite defense. I mean, an average offense right now gets them. I mean, it's hard to say their division is so damn good.
They could go 10-7, 11-6 with an average offense, maybe even better.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue every one of those teams could make the playoffs if they have an average offense. in like the division. Yeah, they're terrible. I mean, I don't. They don't. Kenny Pickett looks like I have no idea what he's looking at. Yeah, I'm just looking at.
To your point, they have some weapons. They got Najee Harris and Jalen Warren at running back. They've got two great receivers in Pickett and Deontay Johnson. Freiermuth's a good tight end. Offensive line is not that bad. Like, this team should be, an average to slightly below average offense. They probably are one of the bottom 3 in the NFL right now.
Yeah, they're horrible, and I don't see them making. Steelers aren't one of those organizations, at least I don't think, that make a lot of changes, especially midseason. They've had like 3 head coaches like the last 50 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They keep putting that stat up. Like, I think that also kind of extends to their coordinators. Who knows? They might be in the market for a QB in the offseason.
They should be. I think that's a logical landing spot for Cousins, but that's a talk for another day.
Oh, could be. I don't really see Kirk though meshing in Pittsburgh. I don't know why.
He's a Midwestern guy.
I could see him. Well, yeah, we could talk about that forever. Where I think he's going. He could be in San Francisco, but I digress. Yeah, bum Matt Canada.
Absolute bum. I mean, he is probably the most hated guy in like any of the cities.
I was watching
right now.
Game Day, College Game Day in the morning, or was it maybe it was Pat McAfee show because he does his show the Friday in
where the game day is going.
And it was in Utah.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden he starts talking about Steelers and a Fire Canada chant in Utah.
Yeah, you know how bad you have to be in a state that has no allegiance. My first thing
was like, wow, the Steelers got like crowds in Utah. I'm like, what an absolute brand of football team. Yeah, that's nuts. I was like, wow. Because I even saw a Fire Canada chant at a Penguins game. I saw. It's a good thing the Pirates aren't in the World Series because it'd be on the World Series too.
Yeah, he should just resign. I mean, he's probably you don't like Steve Wilkes and the job that he's been doing, but I mean, of any coordinator or head coach in the NFL right now,
I would still say at least Wilkes has players and he's failing. I think it will. No, because I think Pittsburgh's got enough talent, but yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah, Matt Canada, Joey's jacking the bum of the week for his miserable Steelers offense. Looks like he'll be gone any minute now. They're 4-3 despite him, not because of him. Let's head over to my You Like That picks of the week. We went 4-1 last week. We cannot be stopped. We're 24-14-2 so far in 2023. Listen to any podcast out there that you want, whoever you want. They're probably not going to have a percentage quite like that. We have been extremely lucky, but I mean,
my math says that's 50 points.
Yeah, 50 points, 24-14-2. In the NHL, we'd be right at the top of the Pacific Division if we were a team. But
I think the Sharks are going to have that record after 50 games or whatever it is.
Yeah, after 50 games, they'll be.
No, what is it? That's 40. Sorry, math off.
Yeah, the Sharks will be 2-24-1, I think, something around that. But not us. We're 24-14-2, 4-1 last week. We got there with Tennessee +3. Most people who listen to it probably, if you bet it, we're only able to get Tennessee at like +2.5, +1. But Tennessee did get there. Philly -5.5, Miami -8.5, Seattle -2.5. Only one we didn't get there with was San Francisco -4.5. That line moved a ton. Yeah. Thanks, Niners. We could have had our first 5-0 week of the year. But all that being said, we're on fire. I actually do like the slate again this week. I feel like we're going to have another winning week. I like my bets. Let's start with Kansas City -2.5. You just take Mahomes. You take the pedigree. Miami has struggled against good teams. All their wins are against teams like the Giants, the Patriots, the Panthers. Like, they beat up on the bad teams. This is a really good team. This is an Andy Reid coach team. McDaniel will have his hands full. I like Kansas City -2.5. You and I both like Houston -2.5 at home against Tampa Bay. D'Amico probably should be 4-3, maybe even 5-2. Had some bad luck last week in Carolina with that one. So we're picking Houston in that one to bounce back after that tough loss. Philly -2.5 is a slam dunk for me. I was shocked that it was still at 2.5 at some betting sites this morning. In my opinion, it should be at least 3.5, maybe 4. So we'll take Philly there. I think they're going to roll over Dallas. We both love Cincinnati -2. I mean, what would this number have to be for you to not bet Cincinnati against Buffalo, given Buffalo's defensive injuries? I mean, I really like Cincy there.
8.5, 9.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is like if it was 4.5, I'd probably still take Cincy. Like, it's a great number at 2. We are all over that. Might even bet more than a unit on that one. And then Jets +3. That's just a flyer. The 5th game is always a tough one for me. Couldn't find one that I liked that was going to be my 5th bet. So I'll go with the Jets +3. To me, if the Chargers win by more than 3 on the road against somebody, whatever, I'll take the loss. Like, that's not a Charger thing to do, to go on the road and win comfortably. So there they are. You like that picks of the week for week 9 in the NFL. We're 24-14-2 so far in 2023. And here we go. Kansas City -2.5 in Frankfurt against Miami. Houston -2.5 in their game against Tampa. We like Philly a ton, -2.5 against Dallas. We like Cincy a ton, -2 at home on Sunday Night Football against Buffalo. And then we'll take the Jets +3 on Monday night. There they are, your You Like That picks of the week. Joey, it's time for your Feels Great Baby, your wildest take you feel best about currently. And you're leaving the NFL to talk about the college game.
Yeah, that's, like I said, one big bummer about going to a game is you kind of miss everything on a Sunday of football. So I spent all my time watching football on Saturday, at least more of it. And my big takeaway and my thing I feel pretty great about right now is Pac-12 is going to get a team in the playoff. Pac-12's unfortunately at their extinction, actually, but they're like, I mean, someone said it and I can't disagree. You could argue that they're the best conference in the nation this year.
Amazing.
I mean, they're like Washington is a powerhouse. Oregon, powerhouse. Like, I think Utah's pretty good, although they got waxed by Oregon. Oregon State is good.
Utah's
USC
missing their
was good.
quarterback, and you know, I think Utah would have been a national title contender had Cam Rising been healthy.
Yeah. And USC wasn't, see, if we want some takes, USC, like Lincoln Riley has
Lost control.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
lost control, but I was just seeing, well, you would know, you're even in LA. I wonder, I mean, USC's pretty, I mean, they got to be talked about it at least a little bit down there.
Yeah.
And like, I'm wondering if Caleb Williams, if he does like kind of quit on the team, like his talent really isn't changing, obviously, his skill set. But like, if I was a team, this whole season is just, I don't know. Like, would he be? There's so many good quarterbacks. Like, would he?
The
be
vibe
the
down
guy?
here, the vibe down here in LA in terms of USC is that Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley and the major players on that team, Charmin soft. Like, these are guys who don't want
that's
that
Lincoln's
smoke.
thing on was at Oklahoma too. Like in Colin loves USC, talks about him all the Cowards show.
Yeah.
And he's talked about it like their defense is just being just a joke, like a complete definition of a Big 12 defense. That's Lincoln's big knock is like he just clearly doesn't care about it. When you look at like comparison, like, you know, the Niner Kyle, like he's puts a huge emphasis on defense. Like look at where they pay players, their draft picks, you know, and Lincoln, and I don't know, I just and Caleb, that's the thing. When you had such the great season Caleb had last year, like it's hard to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
In college when there's so much turnover, but yeah,
they should have lost at Cal last weekend.
Cal.
Yeah. Cal, who may not even have a football team in a few years, and they almost lost that one.
Yeah, I mean USC should, but I mean, even the other like, I mean, obviously Colorado was the talk of the town for a couple of weeks. Like if they're like your 6th or 7th best team in your, you know, conference, I mean, you know, they're only going to get better with all the recruits Deion's going to get. But yeah, honestly, when I typed it up, my first thing I wanted to put, like to go super hot take, is they're going to get 2 teams in the playoff.
That would be nuts because you would have to have
Because
Washington.
it'd be Oregon and Washington. Like if Oregon and Washington played a hell of a Pac-12, because I believe the Pac-12 changed it. It's no longer North and South.
Yeah,
Like,
it
the
is.
champ. So
It's the best two.
If it's Oregon and Washington beat Oregon last week in Washington, if they play again and Oregon beats them in a hell of a Pac-12 championship and they both got one loss, I mean
that scenario
you would do it if it was an SEC.
It would have to be Georgia going undefeated, Alabama losing a second game, probably like Ohio State going undefeated, or Michigan
You'd have
going
to have
undefeated.
Ohio State going undefeated and beating Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan losing twice.
Because if Michigan,
or
Would it be
losing
twice?
once to Ohio State.
yeah, because I don't think they'd put Michigan with one loss over Oregon or what. Because with all the shit going around Michigan right now,
Yeah.
I don't think they want to put them in the playoff if
No.
they don't have to.
And the Big 12 doesn't have anybody.
No. Well, I mean, they could have had like
Oklahoma
Texas.
just lost to
Yeah.
Kansas. Yeah.
I mean, if Oregon and Washington go through their schedules and each finish with one loss,
Could be pretty crazy. The final season of the Pac-12, and they're
But if Washington goes undefeated, which they've already beat Oregon, I don't know if they still got to play Oregon State or US. But like if they go undefeated, I mean,
obviously they're in.
They're up, but I'm not like, are they up there like 1 or 2? Like would they be ahead of like a?
If they're, I mean, with their resume, with how they played in the big games, I think unless.
That's the thing that the Pac-12 just hasn't had. Part of the reason why they've never had a playoff team is like the team that wins the championship. Like they're like, who did you beat? Like every team is ass. But like this year, they're like, look at who we beat. Like all these teams, it's like Utah, Oregon State. Like, okay, you beat Colorado. That's at least a little bit now.
Yeah.
It's Pac-12 is going from Pac-12 elite swan song to the Tupac to Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, the unbelievable season for the Pac-12 going out on a high. I think their games, especially like you watch all the SEC and Big 10 and Big 12 games, and then at night you're like, oh, there's still some Pac-12 games on. They've always been electric. Like this whole season,
yeah.
They've been really
up
good.
Until this year, it's like who gives a crap?
Yeah, and
like
even that
year's...
USC Cal game was like must watch, like awesome game.
But I mean, even then, they've had like some of their 12-30 games, like I mean, the Oregon Utah was like, oh, this feels like it's like the Alabama Tennessee game last year, or like Georgia, whoever.
I know this is Bo Nix's like 73rd season as a
he's
college
like
quarterback.
Wilder.
Yeah, he's on that 7-year plan, but even so, he's looked really good.
He's on like the redshirt transfer, COVID extra year, like whatever.
Yeah, I feel like he's been playing since
been in
like
college as long as I was.
Yeah, he's looked insane.
But you look at that game like this. Well, not this, but I keep thinking about last week, Washington, Oregon. I mean, Michael Penix Jr. is going to be a high draft pick.
Yeah.
Bo Nix. I mean, I thought Bo Nix, like you think like, oh, he was like discarded by Auburn. Like who the hell have they had?
He didn't look good at Auburn.
And then he goes to Oregon. It's like this guy's going to be top 10, 15 pick.
Yeah.
In the draft. Maybe not that high, but
Pac-12's electric. I mean, and they're still missing.
Michael Penix Jr. threw right-handed. The dude is the first pick in the draft. That's
we need another good lefty opposite Tua, though. I mean, it's been a while since we've
had. This guy's better than Tua.
Multiple lefties. Okay, now there's a take. Let's see if Michael Penix Jr.
I watched Washington. The way this guy throws the ball, like the only thing I could say is like it only looks kind of weird because he's left-handed. If this guy was right-handed, he's the first pick in the draft.
Move aside, Caleb Williams. Michael Penix coming for your spot there at the top of the draft next year. Let's close the pod. We got to talk about some other sports outside the NFL. I wanted to have a discussion about, obviously, after this Vikings injury where Cousins is out for the year. Basically, all of my teams, other than Tottenham Hotspur, who I love, they're in first place in the Premier League. That's very exciting for me. But all my teams that I traditionally root for, the A's, the Vikings, and the Sharks, are now essentially completely unwatchable. And like, this is let's talk about best practices for a sports fan whose teams suck. Like, what do you do in this situation? Do you not watch the games as much as you normally would if the team was in contention? Do you still watch and try to be like, oh, this young guy looks good for the future? Do you do a little mix of both? Like, because with the A's last year, because of the relocation situation, I turned it off and did not watch basically anything after mid-April. But for the Vikings this year, obviously I have to watch because we're still in contention, even though we lost our quarterback. But then there's the Sharks on the other end of the spectrum where it's a full tank job. Like, what do you do?
I don't even think it's a tank. I think they just suck ass.
Yeah. What you went through this with the Niners in the Chip Kelly
The correct
season,
answer is it depends on the sport.
Right.
Because like football, like even if your team sucks ass, it's still as fun, whether it's like betting or fantasy football. Like that's what makes it so like just what's the word? Like invincible as just a sport, as a brand, the NFL. Like, I mean, what else are you gonna do when it's cold and rainy outside on a Sunday or the weekend, And then you go the other end of the spectrum, like the A's, who not only just aren't good, they don't have any like the A's. That's the thing. They sell all these players off. Like you don't develop that like emotional to like certain, even like a guy like a Coco Crisp, who never was like the best player, or he's never making an all-star. He probably did in his career, like an all-star game,
but he's never a top even 50 player.
Yeah, but like you love that guy.
Yeah,
like obviously Donaldson and Cespedes back then, but even like a guy like Brandon Moss, like I fucking love Brandon Moss.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't exist with the A's.
Yeah.
And like it's every day, like watching that every single day is like difficult. And then on top of that, the team's like, we're spending no money and we're going to move. Like there's no like brand, there's no like book that teaches you how to be a fan for that. It's just, you're not. Like what happens is you're not.
Yeah.
Like the Sharks is kind of in the middle. Like, especially being what I still feel like is my favorite team, my favorite sport, although it's been pretty hard like the last 3 or 4 years. Because like I still love to watch it, like follow the team. Like if the game's, I'll watch it. But am I reorganizing my entire week around it? No.
So these
especially
seasons,
on top of that with having a kid, like I'm not like, oh hey, hey honey dear, can you take care of him for like a few hours? Like I just want to like, I work today, I just want to watch the game. Like I'm not starting World War III at home over the Sharks and
Columbus.
Yeah, Columbus on Tuesday night. No thanks. But yeah, I still like follow all the transactions, follow like, how about like just a little round of applause for my boy Joe Thornton retiring officially.
Absolutely.
My favorite athlete of all time.
Yeah, definitely in my top 5. Tip of the cap to you, Jumbo. All-time great.
It's been a long time since we'd probably be a really super long time until we ever see anyone. Number one, the talent. And number two, like, again, I love that guy. Like, there are Sharks players that I love that if I see them when they're 55 years old and they have no, like, they haven't scored a goal in 25 years for my team, I still would be like, can I shake your hand, get a picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I saw Michael Granlund on the street, I would not give a shit. If I saw like Mario Ferrara, any of these guys, I don't care. Like you guys have never helped me with any. What it boils down to, you've never provided a moment that I remember in my life. It's not the wins. It's not like oh, look at how many like division titles or like any playoff wins. Like who cares? It's like, do you know how many times in my living room I was with people I loved that like Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, Nabokov, you go Brent Burr, all these players.
Mm-hmm.
You go to football, like even hell, like a Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the guy, is a very flawed player, but I love Jimmy Garoppolo because he's been like, he's helped me have moments with my dad, my mom, people that I love being around.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. And like with the A's and Sharks and like maybe I still think it's like football you can. I mean, like there's only so many games but like specifically like the A's and Sharks, like I haven't had any one of those moments with an A's or Sharks team in years.
Yeah.
And like
since at least 2019. At least.
Like If they wanted to sign Joe to a 1-day contract for him to play Thursday, you bet your ass I'd put my ass in a seat in the stadium.
Yeah.
I'm not driving all the way out there for any like player. Like the A's, like we said, love Brandon Moss. Like I freaking loved Douglas Murray. The dude was like a 5th defenseman on the roster. Like the 5th defenseman on the Sharks right now. Like I don't even know who that is. Like you know how big of a problem that is if you're like the team and like trying to sell tickets and like buzz. Like
top
I'm the
1% fan. Yeah.
I'm the demographic. You know what I'm saying? Like if you can't get me to name the player, like no one knows. Like, you know, I'm the top 1%. I mean, sure, there are people who really, 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 really love it, who maybe don't have kids now or like, you know, a job, or like maybe they do have 24 hours in a day to like devote their time to these things, but it just sucks. I mean, you say, what's the best practice? It just sucks. Like I
was going to say that I think it, like you said, obviously it depends on the sport.
This would be a good thing to plug this, which Kayla's mom brought it. She's staying with us for a few days, but she brought it because she thought of me. But, you know, I love my beer. But look at this. This is what I am.
Sad dad.
This is what it is. This is what it is.
Sad dad triple IPA. Holy shit.
Like, I'm an IPA guy. This is pretty. I like triples, but there's things says because you're a dad. When there's only time for one, which is so true, you get one. You get one that knocks you out. This thing is like an 11%er.
Oh hell yeah, yeah. So that's what you got to be pounding when you're
like
teams.
I've never had it before. I didn't even know it existed, but it was in our fridge when I got home yesterday. She's like, "Oh yeah, I thought of you." I'm like, "Oh, that's why I'm sad dad." But I thought about it, like the Sharks. You know, like when they were like breaking my heart every year, like in the playoffs. I was always like, you know what, I just, you know, when it just, I wonder what it's like to have your team just suck and like you never have to like want to like, you know, murder somebody or something like after a loss. Like you don't have like anger problems. And
well, you've had it for 5 years.
The truth is I've had enough experience and I'm like, yeah, I would take losing like in a reverse sweep right now. I really would.
Yeah.
Like, because it's not just like you win 3 playoff games, but then you like lose 4 in a row. Like, because you still won 3 playoff games, which means you also won a lot of games over a span of like 4 or 5 months in the regular season that were probably pretty cool to watch as just general entertainment. Right now, I just don't have any entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
I was gonna say
dad all the time.
It depends on the sport, yes, but it depends on the team even more. Like the A's have shown no reason to watch them since 2022 when they pulled the plug and traded all their best players. The Sharks have shown no reason to watch them at any point in the last 5 seasons. The Vikings, I think it's watchable, yes, because it's the NFL, but like if they can get halfway decent quarterback play, they can still make the playoffs. So it's still watchable, even though the season is for all intents and purposes over. So tough situation for us as A's and Sharks fans. Your Niners are on the slide. My Vikings just lost our franchise quarterback for the season. Tough times right now. I'm hoping next week we can come back and say, hey, you know, the Vikings made a deal. They got a new quarterback.
I can't lose next week.
Yeah, you can't lose because the Niners are on the bye. Hopefully they acquire someone, maybe a corner, maybe a offensive lineman, defensive lineman. We shall see. I hope we have something positive to talk about next week after a tough week here on the pod. But we'll be back next week. We'll talk about week 9. We'll preview week 10. Hopefully our teams are back on the up and up. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast, and we will see you next week.